Good evening and welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. And this evening my guest is Bob Killion, who's the curator for Peoria Historical Society, and he's going to continue to fill us in on all the unique items that we can find at Bradley University's Special Collections. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for taking time to come and
Not a
talk to
problem.
us. I know we were just talking before we went on the air about how the library and Bradley and the Historical Society all work together, sharing information and things. And I can't get our picture up here. Here we go. And so, of course, Linda Allward, who's used to be at the library and is at Bradley now, came last week and told us a lot about what's at Bradley, which I'm not sure a lot of people who aren't familiar with the community know that or don't have that kind of passion for history to go dig, and then they're, oh boy, look what's here.
Right.
But so you're going to tell us a little bit more, and you've sent a lot of cool images, but do you want to give us any kind of overview first?
Sure. The Historical Society's been around for 78 plus years, and so we've been collecting that entire time. And the Spooner Library has been in several places around town, but in, I believe it was 1980, it went to Bradley Special Collections. And there's over 1,000 linear feet of material at Bradley Special Collections.
Wow, that's
and
very
so
cool.
basically it's anything the Historical Society has collected, is continuing to collect, that is library material, research material, archival material. It's not an archive, but we do have like material that I would consider archival from several groups that have donated their stuff, either as they've gone out of business or as they've moved offices and they didn't want to move it with them. So like we have the chambers, all their material, and we have the Peoria Riverfront Action Forum, I believe it was. They're no longer in business, and so they donated all their material, and so that's more of an archive for that individual organization.
That people can come in and find
Right.
that. Okay. Why do you think that Bradley Special Collections is a good place for that type of thing for Peoria to be retained?
Well, it's a really special relationship because the Historical Society, like I said, the Spooner Library had been, I think it started in the Park District, and then it had been at both of our houses, but it was staffed by volunteers, and so it was only open to the public at certain times, and it wasn't in while it was in good storage, it wasn't in perfect storage. Well, Bradley gives us lots of opportunities because it's open 5 days a week. There's always staff there to help, and it's got a climate humidity controlled vault, and they have a paper conservator on staff. So it's a real asset to us to have our material up there, and it's an advantage to Special Collections and Bradley University because their staff and students then get to utilize that material, and that's part of the arrangement. Is while we have fees not for researching in it but for utilizing images and stuff, staff and students at Bradley do not have to pay those fees. So
And that's
part of
great.
the arrangement.
And people may not understand the difference between like Bradley University Special Collection and Peoria Public Library, but we don't have a paper conservator, and when people donate things or groups donate things to us, it becomes part of our collection, but you retain control of your collection at Bradley. So there's it's not territorial, it's a matter of putting the resources where they can be best used and best preserved, and we all share, you know, we go back and forth. The staff at Bradley University knows staff at Peoria Public Library and can often point people back and forth between those two places to do their research and find the things they need.
Yeah,
So it works well.
It does. It's a great relationship. In fact, I actually tell usually everybody that contacts me, I actually tell them to start at the Peoria Public Library because the Peoria Public Library's history collection has the Genealogical Society's collection, and many people are doing genealogy.
Yes.
It also has Central Illinois Landmarks Foundation material, and then of course the Peoria Public Library's history material. So many people going there may answer all their questions. Plus, if they're doing genealogy, that collection is much more aimed at genealogy. We have genealogy, and we have all of it's useful for genealogists, but we don't collect genealogy. So I actually send people with donations to you at the library. But the added benefit is that because our collection is organized a little bit oddly, I would say, in that it is based on a subject headings that were made up by the WPA. And so the WPA subject headings from the artists, the photographers, and the writers, that was the basis of our organization, and it's been added to over the years. So the more that you know when you come to special collections, the more likely you are to find what you're looking for. Because if you're looking for your ancestor, and you go to the library and you find out everything you can, and you find out he was a member of he or she was a member of this organization, this church, owned this business. When you go up there, we have house biographies. We have files on businesses. We have files on areas of business. We have files on streets. We have files on churches, on organizations, social organizations, everything. And so the more you know when you go up there, the more the staff can go back, because it's closed stacks. The staff can go back and bring out these folders and say, here, you need to look through this. So I always tell everybody that calls me for research, well, this is what we have, and I can go into our collections database and do a search, which everybody can do on our website. Obviously, I've got a lot to put in, 78 years worth. I'm only up to about 1970. But they can do some research online that will give them an idea of what we have. But I always tell them to start at Peoria Public if they can. And they need to go to both anyway, because despite the fact there's overlap between the two collections, there are unique things to both. So it is a very good relationship between the three organizations. So.
You mentioned the WPA, and of course I know what that is, but would you explain for our viewers, because there's going to be people watching this that don't know much about doing historical research.
Yeah. The Works Project Administration during the Great Depression was a program by the government that put people to work, and so some of the programs were construction programs and stuff like that, but it also employed people who were more in the arts and intellectual. So they hired photographers to travel the country and document historic buildings. They hired writers to write local histories and stories, and they hired artists to paint art. And so the WPA would come into an area and they would make this collection, and then they would give it to local organizations. So the Historical Society has that collection, and the Peoria Public Library has that collection. And so they did things like indexed the old newspapers. They did many things, and so that's the reason why that was the nucleus of our collection, was what started the organization, I guess.
Yes, when people come to Peoria Public Library and they're looking for someone, and we'll often say, let's look in the WPA file, and they go and look in those newspaper indexes and often find really interesting things. So, well, we've talked a lot about how things work and how we work back and forth, but you brought some really, really fun images, and so I think we'll start looking at those so people can find out history is fun.
That's actually out of the 1873 Atlas. We have several copies in special collections. We also, because they're not exactly rare, they don't show up all the time, but they're not exactly rare, we actually have several people can actually purchase either a copy of the prints out of it, or we have some that were donated specifically so we could sell them. So they were falling apart, so they're already broken, and if this is somebody's relative, then they can actually purchase either the original print or a scan of the print.
So it says residents of M. Hennenberry, corner of 3rd and Sanford Streets. Are those streets still called that? Do you know?
I actually don't know. I would have to look it up.
With my work with our Carnegie Library in the South End and just own genealogy, I have found that the older parts of Peoria have been renamed and renamed and renamed, and I always think it would be fun to do one of those things where we can lay a map over the old map and get all the names in one place. But yeah, how fun. I'm sure people now don't think of Peoria as there we are with dirt streets and carriages and buggies.
Actually, this was brought in by, or was purchased by somebody who, Patricia, who worked at the library. This is her relative, ancestor, and actually she brought in, I have a photograph now of that house as well as the lithograph. So
very cool. Very cool, very fun. I'll look at something else here. A little later in time.
Yeah, and that obviously was a photographer who was doing advertising work, because you can see that the background is painted out for it to go on there, and that was probably from Shipper and Block, I believe. This is the file that I got that out of.
Do you know what year this is, or who these
Yeah,
children are? or
I
anything?
don't.
It's
It
just-
did not. It did not say.
Yeah, it's a time
Sometimes,
capsule of
yeah.
Peoria.
Sometimes I have lots of information. Oftentimes, people
Mhm.
bring in stuff. Literally, stuff has come in out of the garbage. So
Yeah.
it varies. Now, this is the Santa Claus parade.
Yeah,
So
which of course we have the country's oldest Santa
Yeah.
Claus parade, and people are always astounded by that. I'm not quite sure how Peoria ever lost its reputation as the important place it is, but we're important for many things, and that's one of them. Penicillin and the Santa Claus parade. This is Santa Claus parade again, and that would be Mother Goose, Mother Goose, or
yeah, Mother Goose, and of course a cat tractor pulling it.
yeah, and a woman driving it. And there's our friend, the Hotel Pere Marquette.
Yes.
Postcard. And do you remember what year this was built? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's in the 20s, maybe.
I'm not that type of historian. I look stuff up. I don't memorize everything.
You don't memorize it?
Yeah.
And I try to remember it because I just like Peoria history. I'm pretty sure the pier was built in the 20s. And I know it was, seen as elegant and luxurious.
This is the Victory Parade after World War II. I believe 1946. This actually is part of our collection, but it was brought in for the Peoria Memories books. And so we worked with the Journal Star and Piedmont Publishing on those, and the public could bring in pictures to be scanned. And this was a group of pictures that was brought in to be scanned. So when they signed the release, it not only did it go in the book, but we got a copy for our collection. And it's been really fun. That was on the cover of 50 Plus News and Views, and I've had 2 different people call me and say, my family is in this picture.
Wow.
And one of them said, there are no pictures of my dad, and that's my dad, and that's me sitting on the curb. And so somebody just happened to capture
The family. Yeah. How fun. And oddly enough, my mother was a teacher at Bradley for that parade, so I don't know if she went to the parade or not. But
we collect a lot of business material, both photographic, advertising, business papers. I mean, our collection really encompasses everything. I mean, literally everything. We have large things, we have maps, we have posters, we have glass plate negatives, we have all different types of photographic material, both paper-based glass, the ambrotypes, the tin types, and this one I believe was a glass plate of the Albany Cafe.
that looks like about 1920 or so.
Yeah, that's
Judging by the ladies' hats is what I'm going
and
by.
the men's suits.
Yeah.
Everybody's in a suit. The older you go back, even working men are in some type of suit oftentimes. So,
And the bow ties, everybody's got a bow tie. Yeah, and that and the tin ceiling and those chairs that now you see reproductions of those. This looks like streetcar
it's
conductors,
streetcar conductors, yeah.
and it says they're headed for Prospect Heights.
Yeah. The neat thing about scanning the pictures is oftentimes you can pull out information. Like if this was the high resolution scan, we could zoom in and read the signs behind that. And I've scanned glass plates where you can read the packages inside the windows of the stores. So it opens up a whole other area of research for people who's doing serious research.
Yeah, find out even what people were selling or what they had. And when I first bought my own house, I actually lived on a street that still had streetcar tracks in it. I don't know if there's any left now or not, but I'm sure that
most of them are just paved over.
Yeah, they're paved over. They're under there. Mine were still up, and it was still brick street.
They found some bricks, and I think the streetcar when they were doing some construction at Bradley recently.
Yeah,
so
yeah. That used to be the way to get around, though.
Yeah.
And there's the Shipper and Block building, because you can see the S&B up on the top.
Yeah.
And more streetcar tracks and
Bergner store over on the right. Like I said, again, on these, oftentimes you can zoom in. They vary. The quality varies quite a bit on some of the pictures. The glass plates are usually really fine, detailed. They can be in varying shape, but you can usually get a lot of detail out of them. Some of the other stuff is some type of printing process, and you can't do near as much. But our pictures, we've sold pictures to people for 4x6s to put in books, and then we've had them blown up wall size. So They can, depending on the picture.
And you have pictures at the Riverfront Museum
Yes.
on the street now,
We
too, I believe.
Some of the buildings that they blew up building size were from our glass plates. Our photos are used in a lot of the media on the street and the video presentations and in some of the other areas as well.
Which, if people haven't been there, they really need to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And I understand that in like 2 years' time, that will change and be something.
Yeah.
They'll redo the street, and so that'll be something to
it'll
look forward
change
to.
every 18 months to 2 years.
What's fun about this is there's a corner vendor selling food, just
Yeah.
like we have now. People still eating outside in the nice weather. Here's a little later, maybe, cars. Adam's California Fruit Gum. Fun to see, and I'm sure, you know, people doing genealogy, there's a billboard for Merkel and Sons Monuments, and that's one of the things is we tried to trace the descendants of people who were buried at the original Peoria City Cemetery, and we would ask people, do you have, you know, a receipt from a monument company? Do you have, you know, do you have anything like that? And sometimes people did, and they would bring in a whole packet of papers with the bill of sale for the lot and for the monument, and we were much more likely to assume they'd actually been buried there rather than bought the lot and resold it if they'd had a monument at one time.
A lot of these are fun. This one's doesn't show it as much, but oftentimes you'll see a cable car, a Model T, Model A Ford, horse and buggy, a bicycle, all in one picture.
Yeah,
all
mixed up, and age of transition. Kind of like we are now with digital and paper. Do you have a paper newsletter or a digital newsletter, or do you do both? We do both. World War I.
Yeah, during World War I, Camp Bradley.
And that's on the Bradley campus, correct?
Yeah,
Do you know where,
should
judging by where
should be on the quad, I would say.
On the quad, by where the buildings are, can you tell? Certainly a different place back
We
then.
have some pictures. There's many pictures of this, including the entire unit out on the quad with the.
Wow. Was that all Bradley students that joined together?
Yeah. I mean, it was all Bradley students that were training up there. We had prize fighter Bob Fitzsimmons, which actually we've been contacted recently by somebody who found this online, and a descendant who lives, I believe, is in New Zealand, had found the picture and was interested in trying to get a copy of the picture. So.
And look at that beautiful entry for the National Hotel. North Jefferson Avenue in Hamilton. We could go right there today and stand in that spot.
That's something too. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of the material is we're putting it up on History Pin, and so not only can you get at our material online and go up to Special Collections and research stuff, but you can go online to our History Pin site and you can actually see it superimposed over what's there now. So you can actually fade it in and out and see what used to be there and what's there now.
What's really fun, and I do this with your smartphone, you can get the History Pin app if you have a Droid or an iPhone, and so you can go to that corner and pull up History Pin and be standing in the spot
and recreate the picture.
And see the history pins that you've done. We'd like to do that at the library, but we just haven't had time or energy yet.
This was because this was the Peoria Postmaster's first car. We also have a picture of the first car they bought for the Peoria's fire chief. What I find really fun about these type of pictures is the old
the posters
in the background. And in one of the other images, I found one that I could zoom in on, and it was talking about Buffalo Bill coming to Peoria after his triumphant show in Chicago. So there's a lot of interesting stuff you can find.
Yeah. Very cool. Wonder what he'd think about canceling Saturday delivery.
Yeah.
Famous popcorn and malted milk. This is 1925.
Yeah.
A little lunch place.
And that was a glass plate negative that actually it's formatted to, I sold that to a local business, and it was actually put on acrylic and done at about 20 by 24.
Wow.
So, and it looks really neat.
Yeah, and that's also located on Jefferson Street, so another thing that you can stand in the spot where it was. Christ Lutheran Church, Malone and Chandler Streets, late 1800s. Does this still stand?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
The I believe this came out of Peoria Peoria Pictured, a very early book that it was done by a photographer. There's some really neat pictures of Peoria in that book.
In the book. Grand Opera House. Look at that street light. That's wonderful. And the top hats. And this is 1887, and they've got their palmetto fans, and they all have canes. Commercial Travelers Association minstrels. So businesses actually had almost like glee clubs back then.
Well, we do have a lot of material on that type of stuff. Businesses used to have their own bands, their own football, basketball teams, softball teams, and so we have a lot of that material up in the collection.
Yeah, a Caterpillar they have some vocalists, I think, that still perform. Prohibition. Emptying kegs in the street as Prohibition starts in Peoria.
We have
interesting time.
We have the largest collection of Hiram Walker material outside of the corporation. In fact, I've been contacted by a PhD candidate in Canada who wanted to come down here to look in our material because they don't have the material from Peoria, and we have most of the material. We have the from the official photographers, we have the official scrapbooks, we have the official scrapbook history of Keystone. We have a lot of the important businesses, both past and present, material in our collection.
And those are important for a lot of things, either just people studying business, the history of what shaped this, area, people also interested in what their families did. Fresco Park, this is one of those things that when you show, I've had the experience of you tell people about Fresco Park or show them a picture and they go, really, that was there? And I actually have just recently come up with some photos of my husband's family at Fresco Park.
Very neat.
Yeah,
those are fun. The other one that, of course, with Kinzerski's book on the Columbia disaster, more pictures have been showing up. We have quite a few pictures, but I was going through my wife's material and found pictures of one of her great aunts on the Columbia. So.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's cool. 1872 carriages. And what struck me about this picture when I looked at it is I love looking at the workmen, because if you put them in jeans and t-shirts, they wouldn't look a bit different from young men today that would come out and pose at their place of business. And of course there's probably the owner or the boss of the place in his coat.
Yeah.
Not in his shirt sleeves like everyone else.
That is a gentleman who actually, the reason he was a Civil War veteran, that actually comes out of the Green Hut GAR material that we have. And the reason why that picture has been scanned already is because he wrote the Medal of Honor citation for somebody in one of the Peoria units. And so there is no picture we've been able to find of the person who got the Medal of Honor. But somebody was doing a presentation, and so this gentleman is who wrote
it. So very good. Yes, the GAR Hall is a fabulous resource too. And it looks like that's about all we've got of the pictures. Those were absolutely wonderful. So do you encourage people to donate things to you?
Absolutely. I think we are often, if it's not strictly genealogical lists, this is my family tree type material, which is better off at the Genealogical Society at the Peoria Public Library. We are one of the best repositories for it because we've already gathered stuff together and because it just adds to the body of knowledge, and oftentimes it links with stuff that we already have. Plus we have this great arrangement where it gets put in a vault and is controlled and has a paper conservator on staff if it needs it. We've had recently a Civil War diary come in, and that was one of the reasons why it came to us. It's an absolutely wonderful diary. We have many more Civil War letters and diaries up there, and I was just contacted recently by somebody else who is looking for a home for their family's Civil War diary. So we have a lot of that family material, not just businesses. I've had literally boxes of pictures be sent to me from out of state, because somebody said, my father did all this research, and he was in contact with somebody from Peoria who, when they died, they sent all their material to my dad. Well, I don't know these people, and so here, you guys should have it. And so then they send us boxes full of material that has Peoria photographers and Peoria people in it. And so we get to put that into the collection.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. And that's something people may want to think about too, as things like a Civil War diary get older and older. Of course, it belonged to your family and it's a great treasure, but if you want it to be available for a very, very long time, it's better off someplace where it can be conserved and cared for carefully rather than bumping around in your attic or your basement,
Right.
where something could happen to it and then it'll be lost forever.
It's amazing to me how many people come to me and say, I want to give this to the Historical Society because nobody in my family will care. It won't matter after I'm gone. How much stuff comes to us from estates, and I've told people oftentimes, go now and find out who these people are and mark it down on the pictures, because after the certain people are gone, you don't know.
Exactly. That's
although
the
with
biggest things family need to do.
With technology, it's amazing how many how many things can be identified now, and that's what's great about us. We digitize stuff that comes in now. Not everything gets digitized. All the pictures do. We're not to the point of digitizing everything, but that puts stuff out there, and then people can tell us, hey, I know who that person is, or I know where that was taken. So
great. Bob, thanks so much for sharing your time and these images from the Peoria Historical Society collection. That's at the Bradley Special Collections, and so I'm really grateful that you came and talked to us, and this will of course be up on YouTube so people can watch it for a long time. But there's so much going on at Peoria Public Library, and you can check our web calendar at peoriapubliclibrary.org. Come and visit our local history room, go on up to Bradley, and we can help back and forth find you what you're looking for. There's plenty of children's story times, and we even now have a family history club for children who can start working on their genealogy, which is another great lifetime passion you can get your kids started on. So we'll see you next week on Information Please.